I'm the manager of the information, addressing, street naming, and permitting section of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division. This morning is the DRC meeting for Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. This meeting is for the applicant. The applicant can ask any questions about any comments that you've received as of last week. This meeting is being recorded. First item on this agenda is called Williburn Acres. The lead reviewer, Philip Estes, will lead you through his initial comments, and then you're free to make any comments or questions or ask anything you need to know about what you received. Philip.
Thank you. Good morning. We've met, David. I'm Philip, the lead reviewer.
Yes, I'm Robert.
You're Robert. You're the applicant.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Great. So this is a two-lot subdivision on Gainsborough Road. You've received our comments last week, and some of the main issues we want to make sure to talk about is number one, the potential perhaps relocation and consolidation of the driveway, which is so the relocation of the driveway, and then we want to talk about exploring the minimum setbacks to see if you could provide a little more rear yard space for the front lot. There's some general transportation comments, environmental comments, and then fire access as well. And if Melissa's online, we could also want to hear about her comment about the infill development may not apply to lot 2. And also would let you know that last week I received a call from a neighbor on the right, and he expressed concerns about impacts to trees and the location of the driveway there in relation to where his house is located. So I think we could start first with the, since it's related to environmental, perhaps we could start with environmental and the relocation or consolidation of the driveways. Do you want to, go ahead, Dave?
I understand the comments, I think. I just wanted to convey why we think it's important to keep the driveway on the right side. On the left side, it would be much lower in elevation relative to the home sites. That becomes a difficult relationship. So that's one reason. It's always better to keep the driveway on the high side. You can see the neighbors' houses on either side have the driveway on the right side, which is the high side of the lots as the properties slope down to the left. It's a better fit. So that's one important thing. And of course, the existing driveway is on the right side now. So there are reasons for that make sense, grading and things like that. Another factor putting a driveway on the left side would be drainage, stormwater. Again, property's draining towards the left side, and it would be difficult to manage the water off of that driveway right up against the neighbor on the left side. So we're much better able to do that with the driveway kept on the right side. So I'm thinking we've seen comments about maybe sharing the driveway, and maybe there's a way to keep it on the right side but share the entrance and minimize the pavement and minimize some of the impacts to the trees at the same time. So I think that's what we'll be looking to do. Utilities, we show a number of utilities on that right side. Maybe those could be moved to the left side, and that might, again, factor into some of the tree protections that we're looking for. Definitely talk to the neighbor. I've talked to the neighbor as well. He called me. We talked about it. He didn't mention the trees, I don't think, but we can reach out to him again and discuss what trees are important and all that, and make sure we cover that topic.
I believe he's a good neighbor of me. I have a very good relationship with him. Make sure he's happy.
Yeah, but the bottom line is it's from our side, it's important to keep the driveway and the access on the right side for those reasons that I mentioned. But we do understand the trees. So that's I guess our response. Want to add to that or your thoughts on that?
So, the comments, I mean, I think they're coming from a couple, at least from the environmental perspective, is it's trying to preserve existing trees. It seems like there's less on the other side. And the screening that they provide, I think you have some evergreens there, and that's always a concern with neighbors and new development, kind of infill development. And our inspectors run into, we're hearing it constantly from them running, they get out there and then the neighbors, what are you doing? You know, are you cutting down my trees kind of finding us? So we definitely want the communication there. If the driveway is to remain on there,
Okay.
just makes it easier for everybody. But in addition, there's a couple of trees that, you know, are subject to our tree variance provision.
Yeah.
And being able to make those findings. And if there's alternatives, then we can't make those findings. So that's a concern I think that still exists. And when you say it's better for it on the high side, is that for, I know you mentioned the drainage but it seems like that could be accommodated, I would imagine, with stormwater management, but
I mean, if
is
it had
it?
to be, it would be challenging, but if it had to be, I expect we could do it somehow, but it would be difficult, much more difficult.
Is it also like a visibility issue? Is that what you were getting at?
It's really just the relationship of the driveway to the home. So if you're coming in on the low side and you're trying to get into the garage on that low side, you end up having to create a big fill area, or you put the garage in the basement, which nobody really likes. So you can see all the contours there on that front house where that grade is sloping down along the front of that house, and that's because we have all of that change in grade there. It's not a steep property, but it does have elevation change from right to left, so
I
it
guess
becomes an issue.
If you can see if you can move the driveway over any more further away from that property line.
Right.
And
You mentioned maybe using the existing driveway, which actually is right up against that line, so
just whatever we'd be looking to minimize and
minimize
avoid
impacts, yeah.
that perspective. I don't know if anyone else had comments from a different perspective on the driveway location, so I can't speak to that, but just understand we'd have to really be able to make those variance findings and, you know, be convinced that there's not an alternative.
Okay.
So just to elaborate on that point, by using the existing driveway, are you saying that you minimize impacts to the trees surrounding the existing driveway versus having a shared driveway off the property line, but which would be a new driveway?
I think that makes sense because, I mean, we're talking about the driveway's already there. It's in pretty good shape. It's paved. It would need some widening. It would need some work for fire department if it was a shared driveway. So we'd have that matter to deal with, with a wider apron at the front
You
there.
would widen it probably away from the
We'd
property
widen
line.
it that direction, yes. Definitely widen it
Okay.
away.
And then you'd have the extension that goes towards the rear, and that's new because
It's new,
Not there
but it
now.
goes back quite a ways. I kind of highlighted it there in yellow. That's where the existing driveway is. It's hard to see on the plan, but so it almost goes back, you know, it actually goes back beyond those big trees. So. What I was most concerned about actually when we prepared the plan was the utilities that we were showing in that area, knowing we'd have to trench through and maybe we do the boring versus trenching for that, or maybe move some of those to the other side perhaps. I was more concerned about those than the driveway.
Yeah, this is a take from DPS. We do support the shared driveway comment that was made. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think all the reviewers are in agreement that the driveway needs to be shared. I think that there was an additional reason because of the trees, protecting of the trees, to move it to the left side. Just protect additional trees.
I'm sorry, we're saying we still wanted a new driveway on the left side of the property?
No, we were just saying the reason to move it on the left side of the property was because of trees. It's not site
Oh,
distance,
okay.
it's not, there were no other reasons. And so I think if you can demonstrate that you're still protecting the trees and minimizing impacts on the right-hand side,
Yeah.
I think that we can potentially support that as long as it's a shared driveway. I
Okay.
think that's really important.
When you say shared driveway, to what extent, I guess, you know, we don't want to go to the extent where we have a turnaround situation with the fire department.
Right.
So 150 is our max for shared, which I don't think we'd be running into that at this point, but is it the apron mainly just to get off to have to not have 2 points of access, I guess, on Gainsborough is important.
The way that you're drawing here, the way I was envisioning, and others, please speak up. The shared driveway would go to the rear of the lot one, and then it's single driveway for lot two.
I mean, obviously, Marie Fire Rescue will have to, review any potential turnaround, but I'm thinking,
I think we can avoid the turnaround, yeah.
yeah, the way that you have it sort of drawn out, I think it kind of lends itself to a turnaround there at the front house. So
Right.
if there was a maneuver that needed to be made,
Right.
that it could be done there, but.
Okay.
If they can accommodate or use the existing driveway as a shared driveway, that will be preferred. So the impact on the tree is very minimal. But if that cannot be accommodated, the existing driveway has to be removed. Perhaps the new driveway needs to be shared. Our main concern is the curb cut, 2 curb cuts, and if it's shared, that would be preferred.
Okay, next, let's see, I guess these are kind of related to is the 15-foot BRL for fire, but also we want to talk about positioning the front house perhaps a little closer towards the street to provide more of a rear yard. That may also be related to Melissa's comments about the infill development not applying here.
Yeah, I'm online. I just wanted to tell you, it's Melissa Gutos from DPS. I'm online if there are any questions.
Great, thank you.
So I think we've interpreted the EBL, established building line setbacks, correctly. I don't think we have any relief from that, given the requirements in the code section that you had referenced. So I think our front setback for the front house is what we show. I don't expect we can move it any forward, but we certainly would if we could, but I don't think we can. And Melissa might want to speak to that.
Yeah, we have for EBL, there's multiple methods for determining the EBL. So we could meet and go over the different methods to see if you can bring the house up further to the street the way they're recommending.
Okay, I'll reach out to you and just make sure we're on the same page with that. That would be great.
Okay, I'll put my email in the chat just to make sure you have it.
Thank you. Great, thank you. What we could do also, if it ends up being that the front house stays where it is we could move that back line back some, keep the setbacks where they are because of the 80 feet separation that we have to adhere to, but move that back line since we have some extra acreage in the back lot.
You might want to bring the area in the back lot down, so then they would both be considered infill development if it's under 25,000 square feet in area. The other thing is your requirement for any accessory building, it's required to be in the rear yard. So Philip's right, he's helping you out. If you ever wanted like a pool, a swimming pool in ground, or an accessory structure, a shed or a garage in the backyard, you wouldn't be able to build one if you don't have the area.
I'll get with Melissa, confirm
Thank
those
you.
things and let you know how that works out.
Thank you. So next up, so there was a comment from fire. Did you want to talk about that?
The only question I had on that, is Marie online here for that? See her there.
Okay.
But I can reach out to her
Okay.
directly and from that. But I understood her comment. I just wanted to know if we could mix and match the 15 feet.
I see.
I think we would be fine with that in the back. We have extra width there, but the front we would lose 5 feet of potential width. We'd rather not lose. So if we could have one and again, mix and match
Okay.
based on her comment, and that would be best for us, I think.
From a design perspective, we always like to reduce that width as much as possible, as well as the turning radii. So if you find it helpful to have us on the conversation, then Maria would be happy to join.
Okay, all right. We can move on to transportation. We have DOT here.
Yes, Billy Whalen with DOT.
So Billy, I saw your comments about the road section. If you could just explain that a little more.
Yes,
What
it's
you're looking for there.
per complete streets. So it's 10.5 foot travel lane, but if it's 20 feet of paving now, then 10 feet is acceptable. So it would be 10 foot of a travel lane on your side of the center line, and then curb, and then 6.5 foot buffer, green space buffer, and then 6 foot sidewalk. And then the rest of that portion of the right of way would be maintenance strip.
Okay, so we're going with curb and gutter here versus open section?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. And then that sidewalk would extend off-site.
Correct, to the west across that adjacent neighbor's house. And meet the existing sidewalk at the next house. I'm not sure what that address is, but I think the first two homes off of 7 Locks have a sidewalk.
They're still discussing to move the sidewalk to the side of the street. I don't know if that's gonna happen. They're building sidewalk on this Gainesboro Road, and like that's the review that's happening now. And a lot of the neighbors wanted to move the sidewalk from that side of the street to this side of the street on 1712. So that could happen as well. Yeah, the board meeting and neighbors prefer it this way because there's less impact on trees. But the proposal was on the other side of the street. But it's possible that it would be moved to this side of the street.
Is there a fee in lieu situation for a small project? Isn't there a new policy where we could request fee in lieu of doing the improvements? Since there seems to be another project out there that's more of a larger scale.
Brett, are you on the line here? I don't.
He's not on.
I don't see him.
He's not on.
Well, we can look into that and let
Okay.
you know. Yeah. Okay.
I thought that we were asking them to extend the sidewalk off-site to the left.
They are. Yeah.
That was our recommendation, right?
So
why would we be waiving the sidewalk then?
was your question regarding which side of the street the sidewalk should go on?
He's saying there's a project, a DOT project for the neighborhood in general, where they've been talking about.
You're on the call, so let's ask them about that. Billy, do you have any comments about this question? Whether the sidewalk goes on the left or the right side of Gainsborough Road?
I wasn't aware of that. We had the same comment as planning to put sidewalk along their frontage and extend it across that lot to the west to meet the existing sidewalk for the first couple of houses on the north side of Gainsborough.
Yeah, if you look at the air photo, I mean, there's an existing sidewalk that goes 2 lots in, and then you would create this along the frontage, and there would be a 1 lot gap. So it does make a lot of sense to just tie into the existing sidewalk. I'm not sure why we would waive.
They're trying to extend the sidewalk on Behrman House, the first house, the big house, go all the way through. But neighbors were saying, we don't like that. We want to move it to the other side because there's less tree on this side of the street. So it's possible that neighbors will want to put it on that side. So either case, there's going to be sidewalk on Gainsborough.
maybe DOT can look into.
Well, the ultimate section would have sidewalk on both sides. So if any of those lots come in for redevelopment, they will all have to put sidewalk.
You've seen it. They send the plan out. I have it at home.
Yeah.
There.
You can share that with us. We're more
Yeah.
than happy to look at it.
Okay.
I think from general policy direction, we want sidewalks. There's here a connection, a very, important connection to be made. And so that's our recommendation. We're happy to look at what you have, but just keep that in mind.
Yeah, but as of now, they send out the proposal for this side of Kingsborough, not that side.
There may be, there's going to be sidewalk on both sides.
They only want to do on one side,
Who is they?
the county.
The county is
The
here.
county's here.
Yeah, they're on the call.
You're saying
They're
you've
saying there's
received
going
some
to be the
information.
ultimate section.
That's.
So maybe you need to communicate with DOT and understand what's planned.
This is Rebecca from DOT. If the county has a CIP, that's one thing. This is asking the developer put sidewalks on both sides, or put sidewalk on their side of the street and connect into the existing sidewalk. So the CIP is separate from what we actually asked for in development review.
What happens if there ends up a CIP project to build the same sidewalk that we're required to build?
The county will build a little bit less because the developer will have contributed. That's standard.
Or if they,
So-
what happens if they, because I've had this happen, they come in first and build it, and then we have a requirement, but we can't because it's already been built. I've actually had that
Satisfied
happen.
your condition.
Yeah.
I mean, correct me if I'm
That's why
wrong,
that's
DOT
why I
and
was making
DPS,
it
but
clear.
I would say the condition's satisfied if you all beat them to it.
That's why I was mentioning the fee in lieu, because that way we pay. for
No,
the part
we
that
want you to
we're-
build it.
Yeah.
At this point, we'll ask you to build it. And then if by chance the DOT, comes in and builds it, then you don't have to build it.
That's good.
All right. I think we've covered all the comments we have. Is there anything else you'd like to cover? Does anyone else have additional comments?
Well,
Okay.
perfect. Yeah,
Do you have everything you need to make your resubmission?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
This is administrative. That's one thing we didn't talk about. This administrative subdivision, which could be,
The neighbors have already.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. So yes, this will be going to the planning board.
so we'll have to start talking about a schedule. That'll be coming up pretty quick.
Well, for two reasons going to the planning board. One is that it's a flag lot, so that has to be reviewed by the planning board. And two, that we already have two protests from two different neighbors.
Did we share the letters with them, the community letters, or was it just
I
a?
think we're just phone calls, and
Oh, okay.
I've let.
You know which neighbor was that? I know of the neighbors. One.
The first call, she did not identify herself, she didn't want to identify herself, so I'm not sure who it was. But the second call was from the neighbor to the right.
That neighbor. I know I know all the neighbors on that block. So possibly the neighbor across the street, she's opposing the sidewalk as well.
The what? She's-
No,
Opposing sidewalk as well.
her concern was the flag lot. She was opposed to the.
I just think he's saying that the sidewalk project she's posing is what I'm
Oh.
hearing.
She also opposed the other three lots that was subdivided, the 1-3. So she likes to oppose it. But I don't know anyone. I know all the neighbors on that block. Everyone I talk to, they're happy. Their house is very, like, they'd rather see a beautiful, beautiful house there rather than a house with like septic and well.
This is Rebecca from DOT. Can we go back to the plan again?
Sure.
The sidewalk should align I mean, I know that's an ideal, that's a location, but the sidewalk needs to align with the existing sidewalk. So, and even if there's no way I can get that sidewalk built like that without the adjacent property owner dedicating right away. So we would want the sidewalk to align more with what's in the existing, what's 2 lots down or 1 lot down.
And ideally within the right of way, correct?
Yeah, it has to be within the right of way. What is the right of way width here for I assume we're using complete streets?
It's 60 feet.
Okay, so how much are they dedicating?
They're not. It's fully dedicated on that side.
Okay, so they
Of
need
the
to move
road.
the sidewalk inside the right of way. I don't know what that thing is next to the sidewalk. Did we talk about that at all? At MIT number 3?
That's stormwater management.
Okay. I don't think we can put that right next to the sidewalk. I don't know what it is, but generally speaking, I don't know if stormwater
Re-
management's on the line, but
Yeah, Rebecca, this is Mark Etheridge. We've asked him not to put that in there.
okay. Okay, so the sidewalk just basically needs to be aligned with what we have down the street. And hopefully it won't be on the curb.
Okay, you got it.
Just to finish on the planning board note, I was checking the schedule, and your date would be May 25th. And the last Thursday in May is 90 days from the submission date. So if you want to keep that in mind.
All
Very
right,
good.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody. This is the DRC meeting for 400 Veerling Drive. I'm Christina Sorrento. I'm the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and your lead reviewer is Emily Tettlebaum. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed. The purpose of this meeting is for the applicant to ask any questions they might have based upon the comments you received. I will turn it over to Emily first to kind of highlight some of the larger issues, and then really this is the applicant's meeting. So go right ahead, Emily.
Thanks, Christina. Good morning, everybody. Thank you to the applicants for submitting this concept plan to us. It really helps if we can see these projects ahead of an official submission. So this is a 2-lot subdivision, and we reviewed it based on the information submitted, and we really didn't see any red flags based on the information that was provided. We did have a lot of comments, as you'll see, from various agencies, and we're happy to answer any of your questions, but I don't see any major comments that we need to flag for you at this point. But yeah, we're ready for the questions you have for us.
Okay. Leandro?
Yvonne, do you have any questions as far as the subdivision?
This is Ivan with DMV Civil, the engineer that prepared the drawings. I just had a couple questions as part of the preliminary plan that we have to submit. Do we have to do a brand new NRI and FSD and forest conservation plan for this little minor subdivision, or?
Hi, this is Amy Lindsay. I just wanted to, yes, you do have to go through the forest conservation process. And in order to submit even a minor subdivision, you need to either have an NRI FSD and forest conservation plan or forest conservation exemption. So either you need to go through one of those processes prior to submitting your plans.
Okay, thank you.
What would be the forest conservation exemption?
This is a case where you need to have a qualified preparer take a look at different exemption categories and see if you fit in them.
Okay.
Okay.
So as far
Go ahead, Leandro.
Go ahead, Leo. Go ahead, Leo.
Oh no, that's I know that we have. I see here from the review status that most of them were recommended for approval, and then I see a couple that have revision requested, and the utilities are the ones that say incomplete. WSSC, Washington Gas. Oh, and then there's also planning design that's incomplete. But the majority of them were all, yes.
Sorry, I was just going to say for planning design, they just didn't get their comments in time before the e-plans review was completed. And I did send an email with, I think it was a Word document with some comments from that group.
I did see that Word document. I was looking for this one and I saw that one. I haven't really gone through those comments, but that's for the plan and design portion.
Right. And,
and
yeah, some of the reviews won't get completed until you pay the review fees. I think WSSC will look at the plans once you submit your administrative subdivision and pay their fees if needed.
Right. And then I also see here housing and community affairs. That one was incomplete also. And then PEPCO. I saw the incomplete ones were housing and community affairs. PEPCO, of course, is a utility, WSSC and Washington Gas. And then planning design and housing and community affairs.
And well, I can tell you that this subdivision will not trigger a requirement for MPDUs. You might have to make a payment into the housing fund, but I can find out more information for you about that if you would like. But I'm guessing that the housing planner just didn't have any specific comments about this.
Right. So I guess the main question here is that if this is like from what I'm seeing is it's very feasible. There's pretty much nothing that I can see here that suggests that it wouldn't be approved, right?
Based on the information we have right now, right, we didn't see any other major issues with this. Again, once we have all the information, there might be some additional concerns that come up, but based on what the information we have right now, this looks feasible, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the main thing that we want to get out of this meeting is to know if this is something we should pursue or if it's something that's not going to happen.
Well, that decision, of course, is up to you, but based on what we're seeing right now, we didn't see any major issues with this subdivision. So,
okay.
We definitely don't have any major objections to you submitting an application for an administrative subdivision at this point.
Okay.
I mean, not to say
So
that something won't come up, but from our look at this, I mean, besides for the comments you see, we didn't have any major issues with it.
Right, and we do. I guess I'm sure Ivan has done all the calculations, and we do meet the requirements. So, okay, Leandro and Ivan, do you guys have any questions?
Yes, I just kind of wanted to follow up on the preliminary plan process a little bit. Are we required to have the stormwater concept approval before we submit the preliminary plan, or can that be done concurrently?
That can be done concurrently.
Okay. And then are we going to be required to do any of the other studies? I know this is a minor subdivision, like the noise study, traffic studies, or any other as part of this preliminary plan?
Not that I'm aware of, no. If any other reviewers have anything else to say on that, please chime in, but I'm not aware of any other noise or traffic studies you would have to do here based on the addition of one house.
Okay.
I can confirm, this is Matt Folden, there would be no traffic study required for the two proposed lots.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that it was pretty simple. We just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything that was as part of the conditions from the original subdivision plan that would hold us from pursuing this. And to get this in front of you guys to get the initial comments so we can address them accordingly.
Emily, this is Rebecca.
Yes.
I had some comments that I wanted to discuss.
Sure,
first of all, your line weights make it difficult to figure out exactly where lines are. I didn't know what was going on. I guess it's a house or something with a driveway, which is heavier than the property boundary lines. And then you have a purple line. And I thought that there was some degree that purple line can't be from, it can only be a certain degree. It's supposed to be perpendicular to the right-of-way line. And so that needs to be looked at. You don't show a PUE. We need PUEs on all frontages. And are they going to be required to construct sidewalk?
I don't believe so. This neighborhood doesn't have sidewalks.
That has nothing to do.
They have to show sidewalks. Maybe DPS can waive it at the permit stage, but they will have to show sidewalks along their frontage. That was one of my comments. This is Deepak with DOT for the record.
Yeah, and then so you show some kind of like pond or something where the PUE is, and that can't be there.
Okay, we'll take a look at that.
I think that was some sort of stormwater management.
Yeah, so you have to show a 10-foot PUE. You have to show the sidewalk. And Deepak, did you provide them with the cross section for the roads?
No, they have. It's a secondary, not neighborhood street, so they have to show me. First of all, it's an open section road, so I need a cross section for them to show me that it could fit within that 60-foot right of way. So that's something I put in the comments that within 60 foot, they have to show me if they can fit a swale and a sidewalk within that 60-foot right of way. If not, they will have to provide additional dedication. That's something they have to show us.
Okay, and then what we need to clarify then is this lot line that separates the two lots that is in purple or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain, I thought there was always a certain percentage you can't go more of, and I don't know if that is or not. But you need to check with them. And the truncation, there should be a regular standard truncation, not what you show at the intersection of Veerling and whatever that other road is, Stoner.
Yes.
Stoner.
Okay.
That's not the standard truncation that's shown.
Okay, Ivan, do you have any issues with what was just said by them?
No, we'll have to look at the issue with the property line not being perpendicular and verifying that meets the requirements from planning. I think that was the only thing.
Yeah, because I know that that's the only way that we could achieve the minimum lot requirements, I think, right?
Yes.
All I'm saying is sometimes that there's in the zoning ordinance or somewhere that it says it has to be it can only be a certain percentage. Like 90 degrees is supposed to be perpendicular, and then you can go to a certain like 70 degrees, but it can't be more than that or something. And usually that's in either the code or the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
All right, I'll take a look at that.
Okay.
I don't think it's in the zoning ordinance. I don't recall seeing that, but I will check and let you know if there is a requirement.
I would think there would be. I mean, usually that's what we don't come across it that often. I know that, but I would think that everybody, because you wouldn't want something that is like really off centered.
Well, yeah, I don't know. The subdivision code definitely has a statement about perpendicular lot lines, which we definitely did notice here. This isn't perpendicular, which is definitely what we prefer. I think this lot line or this lot just meets the 2,000 or 20,000 square foot minimum lot area. So I think that's why the lot line is the way it is.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I'm not saying, I'm just saying usually that you might want to take a look and make sure that that's not an issue.
Okay, yeah, I don't remember seeing anything about specific percentages, but we can take a look at that again.
Okay, if we can clarify that before we, if that's going to be a red flag, if we can.
Well, Leandro, I mean, just think about the lot line at Carlisle. It's it's not perpendicular at all. It's in an angle, and it's a pretty big angle.
Right, but what she's saying that it is that it cannot, it goes perpendicular and then it like tapers off. That's basically like Carlisle. The whole line is that way. You know, the whole side is at an angle.
Yeah.
So.
I just know that other jurisdictions have that. I don't know if Montgomery County does though. Just take a look and make sure.
All right. We'll take care of that. Okay.
All right. Is there anything else that we should know that might be an issue?
Yeah, you obviously have to meet the stormwater management requirements, but yeah, you didn't submit anything about that, so we'll take a look at that once you submit the stormwater concept. I don't know if I see Mark Etheridge here. I don't know if you have anything you would like to add.
Yeah, I'll say a couple of things. Yeah, you will have to submit a stormwater management concept. I think we talked about that a little bit in some of the other conversations today. In that concept, you're going to have to show us, and it's going to come to me and my group for review. On the DPS website, you'll find the application process. You're going to have to show us that it's reasonable to assume that that whatever's built on this newly proposed property will be able to meet the stormwater management requirements. There'll be some soil testing that you'll have to perform as part of that process, and you'll have to show us a reasonable design for stormwater management that shows full compliance.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I had that at another property where we had to do the soil testing, and because of the soil type, we were able to get a waiver or yeah, for not doing the stormwater management, like the dry wells and stuff.
That was probably an existing lot of record. This is bringing in a brand new lot of record. So we're not allowed to support a subdivision that requires a waiver for this type of use. So we need to make sure that we don't know what the house type's going to be, obviously, at this point. So we're looking for reasonableness. Someone comes in 3 years after the subdivision is approved, and it's a lot of record, and they build a house that they can't achieve full stormwater on, we're not going to send them back to the starting gate. But we need to see reasonableness here. So we're going to do soil testing. It's going to be infiltration testing, not the typing that you probably did before. And if the soils are not good, you'll have to find another method that might be acceptable, planter boxes or something of that sort to provide stormwater management.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else, Ivan, Leandro?
No, I'm clear for now. I appreciate all the input. Yeah, we're excited to put this in front of you shortly.
If you like the reference that Rebecca Torma was discussing, it's in the subdivision code. It's 50.4.3.d, and it's about side lot lines and the
50.4. I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? 50?
Yes, it's in chapter 50, and it's 4.3.d.
4.3.d. Chapter.
And
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 50, and it says side lines of interior lots must, to the extent possible, be aligned perpendicular to the road line or radial to a curved road line. So, obviously this doesn't conform exactly with that. To get the minimum lot size, I'm assuming for this lot, that's why this lot line is shaped the way it is. Ideally, the lot line would just be straight here. If there is a way you can straighten it out, that would definitely be preferable. But yes, based on this configuration, we weren't overly concerned with this.
Okay. All right. So, Ivan, so if there's any way that we can do that, make that a straight line and not have that break on it, I don't know. We'll see definitely if we can adjust that.
Or to be as straight as possible, maybe take some of that angle out and still maintain the minimum allowed lot size.
Right. I mean, it definitely makes it easier for the property owners if the lot line is as straight as possible, as easy to follow as possible.
Right.
And I just put the exact provision in the chat so you can see that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't have any more questions. Does the county, any of the reviewers have any other comments?
All our comments should be in the document that was sent to you or within ePlans. And if anything comes up, feel free to get in contact with me or any of the other reviewers. We'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
All right. That does it for me.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
I am Christina Sorrento. I am the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for Strathmore Square, Building 2 and the reserve at Strathmore Square. I understand that these are two separate projects, but we have, some overlap. So we are going to take one first, and I can't remember, was it 2 or 5 that we wanted to take first?
We're actually going to do 2 first.
Okay.
Which hopefully you can see on the screen. Is it showing up?
Who's sharing screen right now?
That's Emily Tettlebaum is your lead reviewer, so she is sharing the screen. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed, and I will turn it over to Emily to just do some major highlights, and then this is really the applicant's meeting. So go ahead, Emily.
Thanks, Christina. Again, I'm Emily Tettlebaum with the Mid-County Division, and we are looking at Building 2, Lot 2, with the Strathmore Square project. So this is a building right next to the building currently under construction on Lot 3 right here, and the building is right along Tuckerman Lane. So our comments related to this building are mostly about some information that's missing. And I did want to highlight that the stormwater management plans look like they're uploaded into ePlans, but they were not, I don't think, submitted to DPS, the stormwater group, and that needs to happen right away. So that review can happen, because that can hold up a planning board date. So please get those submitted right away. And I had a kind of overarching question about this, whether this building was meeting the sketch plan requirement for providing, I think it's 5,000 square feet of cultural art space. It looks like there's space for Strathmore in this building. So that was kind of one of my overarching questions about this. We're also missing information about site distance, truck turning movements, other things like that. I think all the comments are compiled in ePlans. So yeah, we're happy to answer any questions that you have that have come up based on our comments.
Great. Thanks, Emily. I'm Andy Altman from 5 Squares Development, and with me also is Matt Harris from 5 Squares, and we have a team with us, architects and engineers who will introduce themselves as we go through quickly. Emily, are you or is Christina keep us on time so we make sure, the lot 2 and then the lot 5, we want to make sure we don't encroach on that. So
I can help keep you on time. Go ahead.
Great, perfect. So we'll jump to it. Emily, you did a good job. I mean, we're excited to be here, moving very comprehensively with the development of the Strathmore Square, really having gone through now 6 or 7 years from minor master plan to sketch plan, preliminary plan, final site plan, under construction, as Emily said, with building 3A, 3B, as well as the 1 acre park, 1.2 acre park, and the main road. So that complete first phase is actually under construction. If people haven't been out there, I encourage you to do so, because you really get a sense of how the whole community is coming together and how the master plan lays out really well. We get perspective on these buildings. We are excited that we have 2 applications. They are separate today, but moving forward, which will really fill out the sort of core of Strathmore Square around the park. We're focused this first presentation is focused on lot 2. We are just going to go through and highlight, Emily, as you said, there are lots of technical issues. So we don't need to go through those that are in ePlan to, make corrections on documents and information. So we really picked 3 issues just to spend a little bit of time on quickly. So Matt, I'm going to have you jump in. It's parking, clarification of transition zone, architecture, a couple of the architecture issues about facade, particularly along Tuckerman Road. And then obviously, if anything else from this group, we'd love to hear if anything jumps out from anyone else in the DRC. We want to make sure that's a particular, that you want to highlight. We'd love to know that before leaving. So Matt, I'll turn it to you and we can just jump in.
Great, thanks, Andy. Emily, can I share my screen?
Yep, you should be able to now.
Okay. Can you see the blue slide here?
Yep, we sure can.
Great. So as Andy mentioned, thanks everyone. We have a number of technical comments that the team is responding to, and we went through and identified a few areas for discussion today. The first is on parking. Just to reorient everyone, the site we're talking about is here. This is lot 2, outlined in orange here. The building's 2 towers over 1 parking garage in the first phase are under construction now, as is the first phase of the park, which is really the entire 1.2 acre park here that faces the metro station. So we are going to talk about lot 2, and then following us, the ESL team will talk about lot 5. The first issue one of the things we wanted to discuss was there's a comment in E-plans about our range of parking, and we wanted to speak to why we are requesting a range of parking. I think we are all aligned with the county to strike the right balance of parking here and really probably to the extent we can limit the parking, as this is a transit-oriented development on a site owned by WMATA at a metro station. So we think we're aligned in the sort of limitation of parking. That said, this is outside the Beltway, and so we are trying to strike the right balance of what the residents of this community would need in terms of parking and limiting parking. So we also, this early phase of the design, we haven't finished design development yet. We normally have some coordination issues that come up along the way that kind of affect parking up or down. So we want to respond to that comment as to why we requested the range of parking. It was really driven by costs on our side, trying to thread the needle between the right amount of parking for our residents and limiting the parking, as it's not a huge economic incentive for us to provide. And then sorry.
Yeah, sorry, this is Matt Folden. We do want to nail down the number of parking spaces that you're actually proposing with the application, though. So having a range, we do have a range in the zoning ordinance, but we need to see how many you are providing, and we'll have to lock that down and certified. So it would be helpful to know that, going into the board. So just
understood. Yeah, Matt, thank you for that note. We agree. I think we did this on the first phase. We had a range carried through, and then when we went to the board, we proposed a specific number and then went to certified site plan with a specific number.
Yes.
We can do that here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next issue we wanted to discuss, there was on the zoning, there was some comment about the transition zone. So we prepared this slide here. The transition zone is defined as 60 feet off of the Strathmore Park condo. And so everything that is generally speaking south of this red line falls within the transition zone. We provided sections in the first phase that showed the building on lot 3 and how it conformed with the transition zone. On this particular project, most of the massing, the lion's share of the massing falls outside of the transition zone. So the building does step up outside the transition zone. We have some very minor bay projections in the transition zone. This is a diagram just to show that this is everything in red in that diagram shows everything the massing that would conform to the transition zone if we were to build it, fully out to the lot line. We are not proposing that in this building. What we are proposing are some minor angled projections that you can see on this diagram here that all fall within that transition zone. So none of those projections go above the level of the transition zone where that zone exists. So Emily, we can submit these diagrams, formally to show.
That's super helpful. Thank you. Yeah, it'd be great if you could put those in the supporting drawings folder. That's really helpful. Thanks.
Will do. And the last piece we wanted to speak to is the Tuckerman Lane design. It was in our, first informal meeting with the county was something that Park and Planning told us they were very interested in us studying in great detail. The design team has spent a lot of time trying to, get this just right. So I'm going to turn things over to Arno Atkins, who is the partner in charge from Cookbox Architects, to describe to us where we're headed with that.
Sure. Thank you, Matt, and good morning, everyone. Really appreciate the time to speak with you all and the feedback that you provided. Looking forward to collaborating as we go through the process. As Matt had shared, I just want to speak kind of at a high level and address some of the very thoughtful considerations that Natasha Fahim had outlined in the comments. So I'll move fairly quickly, but I am open to feedback as I go along. As Matt had shared, we had several really constructive meetings with the urban design team and worked through a process to really articulate and activate the Tuckerman Lane side of the project. The diagrams that are up on the screen here are kind of highlighting 3 areas of focus that we had outlined. The first on the left is really identifying transition zones on the south between 3A, 3B, and parcel 2, and then the transition zone at the north side as for the future parcel at parcel 1, and really the importance of those transition zones architecturally, but also for the street wall and the community to make clear transitions between the projects and continue a residential scale. The middle diagram is speaking to the importance of an articulated street wall. We had prepared diagrams on the other side of the property looking at the spine road that was what spoke to the articulated street wall and the building height rising from 3A, 3B to our parcel up to parcel 1. And this is really speaking about some strategies that we have to continue that residential scale and articulated street wall from 3A, 3B over to parcel 2 and how the articulation of parcel 2 is critical in achieving that. And then the third diagram on the right really speaks to the importance of the public and private green space along Tuckerman and how that is woven into the street frontage at Tuckerman, up the stair, and into the residential courtyard, and kind of connecting residents and users to nature throughout their whole experience. On the next slide is just a really quick diagram that speaks to that really long frontage that we have along Tuckerman and how bringing both residential towers down to grade and grounding them helps to mitigate that Tuckerman frontage and really break up the frontage, which we thought was very successful and got really positive feedback on with our informal meetings. This next slide coming up is just outlining the overall massing that you all saw in the submission. In the center is a portion we call the center spine, which is labeled here as mechanical bulkhead, and that really rises up between the 2 towers and unites them. On the south is our amenity roof, the south tower with amenity roof, and on the north is our taller north tower at 172 feet with an amenity roof, and those come down and engage the Tuckerman podium, similar to that diagram that we had looked at previously. And then the next slide is looking at the same massing partie, but looking now towards the north, so you can see some of that height transition from 3A, 3B to our parcel to the future parcel 1, but also how the towers come down, how the podium sets in and aligns with 3A, 3B, then you read the tower coming down, and some of that transition along the overall Tuckerman facade. Just moving forward quickly, we spent a lot of time discussing the activation along Tuckerman and really zeroed in on, so this is an overall what I call a chipboard diagram of the massing, so you can see a little bit more of the articulation of the facade and that gridded facade at a more residential scale of the towers and how that comes down and engages the podium and the street level. And where we spend a lot of time focused on the activation at Tuckerman is at the north side, where we have a plaza condition created, how we articulate and activate that north side, and then pull that activation up through the new grand stair and connect it to the spine road and a pause point at the spine road. But And then looking at the P1 plan, this is our entry plan off the Tuckerman. You can see that on the left-hand side of the screen, which is Project North, we've got the amenity space, which opens up into that plaza. We have the front of house bike parking, storage space, which is also accessed off the plaza. And then you can see the start of the grand stair cut away as it rises up. We're going to zoom in and look at that amenity space very briefly, just to talk about different types of activation. So we're looking now at the enlarged plan that shows your Tuckerman amenity, your bike storage, all fronting onto the new plaza condition. These are very schematic drawings, and we've been continuing to develop those with 5 Squares and a landscape architect, Mayhan Reichel. This is what we had pre-site plan submission. And the next slide shows some of the tools that we have or strategies that we have to really activate this space. With the upper left kind of thought bubble, we're creating a really positive indoor-outdoor connection between the amenity and the plaza, the ability to have public gathering space at that stair. So it has a multiplicity of functions. And then the Tuckerman amenity could be a health and wellness-based type of use. It could potentially be something related to the Strathmore Music Center, or where we kind of landed on and talked more in depth about is really a bike amenity, kind of a start of ride or end of ride, with the adjacency to some of the cycling that's possible at Rock Creek Park, just a short ride away, and how that would be a real amenity for the community, but also for the new district. So just stepping from the plan to more of an overall perspective at Tuckerman, we're at the north side, looking towards the south, towards 383B. You can see diagrammatically that grand stair gesture, the tower coming down, and some of that schematic facade articulation. As we zoom in, we're looking really at kind of that white box view that talks about facade articulation, the transparency, and start to see the massing of the plaza and the stair, and some of that articulation of the wall going up against the stair with some depth. And this next view is the fully rendered view that we had previously shared with the county that illustrates what this space could one day become. So you've got your dedicated bike lane, you have your landscape plaza, you have that amenity shown as a double height here, opened up onto the plaza, and this really fantastic stair, which we're continuing to design with our landscape architect Mayhan Reichel, rising up and kind of switching back with landscape, throughout the whole gesture. That's a look at our plans as of the site plan submission. As Matt had shared, we're in design development. We continue to design and look at articulation and activation along this facade. To address some of the other comments that Natasha had shared, we're going to continue to create additional materials that we can provide as an exhibit, looking at the other side of the Tuckerman facade, so you can see the introduction of landscape, the change in the scale of the frame that you see at the towers, and how that translates to the podium, and illustrate some of our thoughts and our intentions for the design of the building. If we keep going forward, Matt, I can quickly outline some of those concepts for the team that we continue to develop. The first is the introduction of public art onto the facade as a means to activate. And these are 3 different examples that we had pulled out pretty early and shared with you all back at the end of September. Some of them are mural-based, others are installation. And then the next strategy that we had outlined is the introduction of nature or garden, and looking at 3 very successful projects that had introduced some type of architectural landscape into the project. And then the last idea was really thinking about the visual access to parking and wanting to introduce a limited amount of screening, either a biophilic inspired screen like the one on the left at the Lucida, or a denser screen like the Silver Ramp at the Minneapolis Airport in the center, or in the parking house in Copenhagen, Denmark. And so we're continuing to evaluate what that screen design wants to be in the opacity. But the goal is to have some screening so you don't have, as a user along Tuckerman, the visual access to the parked cars is limited. And then how we apply these concepts, I can illustrate that quickly over the next few slides. So again, looking at the overall massing, and then identifying the areas of focus for the massing. So on the upper right-hand corner is our residential facade type, and that's highlighted in purple coming down and grounding the towers. Facade type 2 is the garden, introducing garden between the two towers at that parking, which would then relate to the landscape at the residential courtyard. Facade type 3 is the public art or the mural that we've identified happening at the base of the south tower. And then again, or finally, facade type 4, introducing screening and landscape as part of that transition zone between 3A, 3B, which will be heavily landscaped as terraces and bringing some of that idea across the transition zone at the south.
I just want to interject and say you have 9 minutes left on this item.
Okay. And I think that probably wraps us up. I think the next slide, which should be our final, just takes us back to the rendering that we had prepared before the submission and had shared with the urban design team at the north side. So moving forward, our intention is to add more clarity to our design intent for the follow-up submission with additional rendering, which will illustrate more of the conditions along Tuckerman at the south side, as well as some more clarity in the drawing itself, outlining the strategies that I've shared here today. Thank you. With that, Andy, I hand the mic back over to you.
So Emily and Chrissy, we'll turn it over to you if there are any issues that anyone wants to highlight or a response to any of this, and because I know we're tight on time now. So.
Yeah, Andy, I can just summarize it. This is Natasha Fahim, the urban designer of Mid-County. Arlo, thank you so much for walking us through the presentation that we started back in September last year, that you guys worked with us. And that was one of the main items that it was we really thought that we need to work on back last year for the frontage on Tuckerman Lane, and you and your team definitely work with us, and we see the result of it, how this amenity space has added, and the garage got the screen. So we really appreciate all the stuff that you're showing us. So as a summary, the comments of the design team was to just provide us more detail as you're presenting now. So these are what we would like to see on the second submission, as far as how you're screening the garage, more detail on how you're screening the garage and the blank walls along the staircase, the grand staircase that's going up. But beside that, we really appreciate all the articulation and the details and the fantastic architecture that you guys are proposing for these buildings, and the way that the building is activating the frontage along Tuckerman, as well as your internal road, both frontage are heavily activated, and the open space you're providing as far as the plaza on the south side and the grand stairs on the north side, these are all going to be a great amenity for the public to use. So thank you so much for all the detail.
That's great, and really appreciate the clarification. It is our intent to address some of those issues more clearly with the next submission.
Yeah, and I know that you guys have a lot of massing models and rendering, so if you can include that on the second package, because it was hard to understanding all of these ins and out of the balconies on the elevation. So if you can include it on your second submission, we appreciate it.
Yes, more than happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Are we ready to move on then to building 5? These renderings are beautiful, by the way.
Thanks so much. And Emily, I'll just note one thing. We can get into more detail on the 5,000 square feet. We are working with Strathmore right now in a space planning exercise. We meet with them weekly, so in the next over the next 30 days, be able to more precisely know what seems to work. But our intent is right now we're working toward that for building 2.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to building 5. So this is a proposed senior housing building that has independent dwelling units as well as assisted living and memory care. And it is in the middle of the property right next to the central park that is currently under construction. So this was a little confusing to review because there were a number of inconsistencies between the statement of justification and the plan. So for your next submission, you would just make sure that all the numbers are consistent across those two. That would help a lot. I'm a little concerned about the height of this building and how you got to the 325 feet. It might be that some of the top levels aren't even really considered building height. And hopefully you can work with your attorneys to figure that out, because it would be over 2 floors above what is allowed, the technically allowed height of 300 feet for this building. So it would be hard to justify that, I think, using the MPDUs for this building, but I think we can work that out. And again, I'm thinking that at least part of those top floors are probably not actually considered building height. But we can figure that out. Again, with this plan, it also looks like the stormwater management plans were not submitted into the DPS portal. So please make sure to do that as soon as you can, because we don't want that review holding this up from going to the planning board. And I think those were our kind of main concerns. And, again, there's a number of kind of technical comments in E-Plan. So we'll turn it over to you all to make any clarifications, ask any questions you would like to.
Great. Thank you, Emily. It's great to be here. Steve Robbins with Lord Trillium Brewer, here with my colleague Liz Rogers as well, for a really, really exciting portion of the Strathmore Square project. The Lot 2 presentation was terrific, and we think that this presentation with Lot 5 will equally make this project just something that is standout for the county. Really, it's a pleasure to be here with Experience Senior Living. They are actually the applicant. They develop, own, and manage senior living really across the country with over 10,000 units. And I'm here with Bill Maggard, who is on the screen. And I'd like for Bill, if you could just say hello, introduce yourself, tell a little bit about Experience, and then we'll have Liz run through some of the comments with you, and then close it out.
Thank you, Steve, and thanks, Emily, and the entire team from the county that did so much hard work on giving our us recommendations and requests. And you guys know all about 5 Squares. You've been working with them, or they've been working with you for 6 or 7 years. You may not know much, if anything, about Experience Senior Living. So give you just a quick background about our company. Experience Senior Living, as Steve said, develops, owns, and operates senior living communities across the country. Our parent company is NextCore Group, and probably the most prolific developer of healthcare real estate in the U.S. We're coast to coast and border to border. I think it's important to note that we develop, own, and operate. So we're not just developers that make an investment and leave the community. So we're here for the long haul. We founded Experience Senior Living to do something different in the senior living world. And really what we're trying to do is to help folks like me that are nearing the age of being a resident in a community like this be able to live life to the fullest extent possible, not making concessions to age unless they have to, and still making connections outside the community. Experience Senior Living has 3 flags, or 3 types of communities that we develop: a middle market product, a upper middle market product, and this the reserve product, which is more of a luxury community. And we're thrilled to have connected with Andy and Ron and the rest of the team at 5 Squares to be part of this great development. It's really exciting. Liz, do you want to take it from here?
Yep, thanks for that background, Bill. I think that's good for everyone to have. So I'm just going to walk through some of the comments. Like Bill mentioned, we really appreciate everyone's review and the comprehensive comments we received. Emily, we noticed there are a number of just kind of cleanup comments that we just need to address with the team to make sure all our application materials are coordinated with numbers and the like. So we certainly will do that. I know one of the comments was about public benefit points. But there's an example of the coordination that was in the SOJ. We are taking BLT and public open space points with this application, but recognize that was somehow left off the cover sheet. So we'll make sure that that's coordinated moving forward and all the other ones as well. There are a few comments that we'd like to just kind of discuss with everyone on the call today. A couple we want to get clarification on. And then I think a few, as we normally have, will require some follow-up, more detailed design discussion meeting. The first just kind of point I would note was regarding the fire and rescue comments we received from Marie. The FDC is proposed to be located along the private road A. I know there was some request to make sure that our plans provided all of the information that Marie needed to kind of adequately confirm that we were meeting all the different fire department access standards. We certainly will do that with our next submission. I think we'll also set up a follow-up one-on-one call with Marie just to walk through that to make sure everyone's on the same page and we're giving Marie everything she needs for her review. Emily, you noted stormwater management. The stormwater management application, we will be submitting a new application to reflect the improvements that are proposed for Lot 5. That either went in yesterday. If not, it'll be going in sometime this week to DPS, so that will get submitted. There were a number of area site plan comments. Emily, you noted the building height one that was on our list as well. You're correct. The maximum building height from a zoning perspective here is 300 feet. I think there was an error in terms of how the data table reflected that, so we'll clean that up. And we can add some additional clarification, but the additional height above the 300 feet are permissible height encroachments under the penthouse allowance because they're amenity penthouse and mechanical space. So we can provide that information. They don't, the penthouse doesn't occupy more than the 25%. So it's within the code allowance. There was one other comment, Emily, you had on the data table that we just wanted to kind of note and either get feedback now or we can talk with you about it offline about the best way to handle it. And that was with the note about adding information about Lot 2's site plan within the Lot 5 data table to kind of track the project. I know right now both site plans, which is why we have one consolidated DRC, are kind of tracking together because of the forest conservation plan amendment. But there is a chance that one of them will slightly lag behind the other and maybe not be heard by the board on the exact same day. So our approach had been to keep the two data tables separate on the two different site plans and then just fix that at certified site plan to reflect whichever one had been approved first would be reflected in chronological order on the other's certified set. Is that something that would work for you all?
I think so. I was just noting it there.
Okay.
So, just as a point of discussion, but I think it makes sense to take care of that at the certified site plan.
Okay, perfect. I think there was a comment just about just acknowledging the recreation facilities analysis didn't appear to be included, so we certainly will provide that with our next resubmission. And Emily, I think you had a couple of comments on public open space regarding some clarification, both in terms of clearly showing that the areas we're counting as public open space weren't captured by the phase 1 site plan, so we can be sure to provide something within our exhibits that demonstrate that. We've closely coordinated that to make sure we're not double counting space, but we'll double check it and make sure that that's clear. And I think there was also some comments just requesting some additional information about how our public open space, particularly along the side of the building adjacent to the park, how those spaces relate between the sidewalk and the connection to the Central Park. And I believe our landscape architects have some sections we could include with our next resubmission that will better demonstrate how that connection is already provided with the current design. Switching to MPDUs, just to note, I know Maggie had made in her comments a note about our meeting. We did meet with DHCA last week and had a really great discussion with them. We had let DHCA know, but just a clarification for the whole group today. We are providing MPDUs on the independent living units. The assisted living units will not have full kitchens, so they're not dwelling units and they don't require MPDUs. And we'll make sure that any confusing information that would have been on our plans that made it look like there was kitchens there is cleaned up. And we'll also do, there looks like there was a request for some coordination on that end too, between the SOJ and the plans to clarify what levels within the building have, are devoted to different levels of care. So we can coordinate that when we resubmit. Area transportation comments were next. This is one we did have one question for clarification on. I guess I would just note first that there was a comment regarding providing a flush sidewalk crossing along the vehicular access off the private road, Strathmore Hall Street. We can accommodate this and we'll include those details with our next submission. There was also a request for some truck turning diagrams. Certainly can provide those as well with our next submission. The one we wanted to get some clarification on was there was a comment from Richard regarding a request for a statement of operations for the parking. And we just wanted to make sure we understood kind of what information you all were looking for. The parking here will be 100% valet. So we just needed to know what additional information you all were hoping we could provide.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. This is Matt. And I don't know, Emily, if it's easy to jump quickly to the parking level that shows some of the tandem spaces and everything. We were looking for just a little bit of explanation about how the parking will operate. Certainly, tandem is allowed and it's valet. And so just trying to get a sense of exactly how that parking garage is going to circulate and operate. A couple of the spaces looked really tight. There were cars that were parked, as I recall, and maybe this is something you can picture in your head if we can't pull it up, but there were some head-in spaces on, yeah, that plan's perfect. Thank you, Emily. If you could, either one of those, I think would be fine if you could just zoom in tight enough to see the whole level. There were some spaces that were parallel, yeah, kind of on the bottom left side of the screen there, particularly that last one, just kind of trying to understand how the cars will be pulled in and out. With the building columns and the other cars in the space, it was difficult to get a real good sense of how things are going to work there. And so even just seeing some turning templates for the passenger vehicles, how they get in and out of those spaces would be helpful. Another one in particular is that last car on the right side of the screen, the tandem space that is, the lower of the two tandem spaces all the way over to the right. It wasn't clear that there was enough room for that to actually back out of the space given the column and the wall right behind. So just trying to get a better sense of exactly how everything will operate on the garage level. That about cover it.
Okay, great. Any clarification from our team? It sounds like, Matt, you're just looking for some more of like the turning maneuvers and diagrams that kind of illustrate the movements more than like a narrative with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it could probably be all handled illustratively. And, we understand that with valet parking, you don't have to provide any striping or anything within the parking spaces, but maybe even just dashing in, like a drive aisle area that'll be clear, that shows that there's enough room for the cars to circulate within that area. It's probably all fine. It looks pretty tight. And then I think with the loading vehicle, there may have also been some conflicts with the building walls and everything. So just take a real careful look at that where the trucks are coming in and out.
Okay, will do. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
That's helpful. Thank you, Matt. And then I think last on our list was really just to kind of note the area design team comments we received. Thank you, Natasha, for your thoughtful comments as always. We appreciate it. We are evaluating these in greater detail now, and these are the comments we think will warrant kind of a follow-up, more detailed design discussion meeting. We're glad that staff also appreciates the amenity that's being provided by this project with that grab-and-go cafe. This is something that ESL is committed to committed to making publicly accessible. We're certainly happy to provide some additional information with our resubmittal regarding our current thinking about the operations of that space. I mean, some of it might not truly get finalized until later, like the exact hours of operation, but we can give you a sense of kind of what we're thinking at this stage. There were comments about sustainability. The goal for this project for sustainability is LEED Silver. We can certainly provide some more sustainability details on our sustainability strategies with our next resubmission. And I think there was a couple other comments that we in particular would want to coordinate, Natasha, with you and your team through a follow-up meeting on, in terms of comments about the porosity along the facade facing the Central Park. We certainly kind of share staff's goal to kind of activate that space, but we need to balance kind of the goals of porosity with an activation with the security and safety needs of the residents. And so that's something we want to kind of talk with you all about. I know you had some comments about the amenity deck and then also mechanical screening. So once we dig into those a little bit further ourselves, we can set up a follow-up meeting to go over those in greater detail if that works for staff.
Liz, this is Natasha from Mid-County, the urban designer. Thank you so much. So we are looking forward to that discussion, but to just like summarizing it, one of the biggest comment a lot, as well as like the way that you summarize it, I think it kind of covers all of our comments. Just want to emphasize on the tower and the nice tower that you guys are proposing. 300 feet long, tall, that is easily can be seen from far away, from miles away from Rockville Pike, all the way down from, I'm sure it can be visible from Wisconsin Avenue as well. So the way that the architecture you guys are providing, like a really nice crown with the fenestration and LED light, I think it's going to be fabulous. I think this rendering will show it, but we just want to make sure all the mechanical and equipment that it's not showing on this rendering, but beside on the elevation, those are we're gonna make sure that they're gonna be enclosed and be part of that crown that you are proposing. So hopefully we can discuss it. If you need to have like another meeting just with the design team, we are more than happy to do so. And make sure that all of that gonna get screened off.
Great, thank you, Natasha. Yeah, I know the architects are kind of looking into that further. So that is something that once they have a chance to flesh out the details, that we probably will want to come back in and discuss with you all. Or if not, obviously, if we think it doesn't warrant a meeting, we'll just include the additional information in our resubmission.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Liz.
And that kind of wraps up the comments we wanted to discuss today. So I guess I just paused to make sure that Bill, Steve, that I covered it all. There's nothing else you wanted to add?
That's what I had on my list.
Okay.
Okay, so for both of these, it sounds, do you have everything you need to make your resubmission, or do you need a follow-up meeting?
I think we have everything we need on both of them. I think at most we would, schedule just a follow-up design meeting with urban design and park and planning staff. But otherwise, I think we have all of the information we need, and we can reach out separately if we end up needing those meetings.
Okay, well, our typical setup is if you needed a follow-up meeting, we would schedule it for next week on Tuesday. But if you don't, then we hope that you resubmit within the time frame for resubmittal, which is 11 days.
Yes, we'll do.
Do you all have this schedule, or do you want me to go over that with you?
You can go over it if you want, just to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay, so the first resubmittal is March 29th. The final submittal is 4/18 for a tentative planning board date of June 22nd.
Yep. That's what we had.
Okay, great.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for your comments. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
all right,
sure.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good to see everyone. Bye-bye.